Warning, the following show contains high levels of awesomeness and has been known to lead to increased hobby activity. Viewer participation is advised.
Hello and welcome to Funnyhacks, the show where I literally walk you through hacks that are weird, unusual and the occasional useful one as well. I'm Kevin Sandham and today I'm going to walk you through doing epic footage on the cheap.
Boy, boy, boy.
So you're filming something, but you're running out of angles to shoot from. Today I'm going to show you how to get epic shots without spending too much money. This show isn't particularly technical, but it does require you to know how to work a camera and it does require you to know how to work some models. Which model depends on which shot you're doing. Because this episode's pretty lightweight on the hacking front, there's not many risks that we need to worry about, which aren't standard with the equipment you'll be using anyway. But there are two which I'd like to quickly point out. Know your surroundings, don't hit people. Secondly, respect the privacy of other people. That's all, let's get to it. When I was a kid I saw a movie that involved a lot of chocolate and an elevator at the end. This elevator inspired my imagination for what it would be like to see the world from the eye of a bird. Or, in this case, a person in an elevator. Anyway, so it's not surprising that when I got my first model helicopter, I attached a camera to the bottom of it so I could see the world from the perspective of the helicopter. So assuming you know what shot you want and what angle you need the camera to be at, there's only really two things that we need to worry about: the centre of gravity and the weight. The centre of gravity is usually pretty easy to work out on a helicopter because you've got this great big shaft here powering the main rotor. Depending on the design of the helicopter you may need to go slightly forward or slightly back, but start with your centre of gravity of the object you're hanging off there underneath the shaft and you should do well. Don't put it too far forward, it's very tempting because that allows you to get extra speed, but if you put it too far forward this will happen.
Mayday, mayday, going down!
And we don't want to do that. So, the next thing we need to look at is the weight. Whatever we are carrying, we have to actually be able to lift it. This helicopter was just able to climb with this weight, so it was very borderline, but it did the job. As for mounting the camera on a helicopter, there's a few different ways of going about it. You could do some strong tape, like gaffer tape, duct tape, or cloth tape. You could use rubber bands like I've done here. You could use professional mounting equipment, in which case you're probably not watching this show. Don't use parcel tape though, it's not that effective. Mounting a camera on a radio controlled car is comparatively simple. You see, I've just stuck it on with a whole heap of tape here. Another solution I did was to stick it on using wire. Either way, your biggest concern is just adapting your driving style to cope with the new handling of the car. It's a little more tricky to film the car itself, but it's still not that bad. It just involves a whole heap of fencing wire and some tape. You may also find that just simply running behind the car could be an option as well. I got quite a nice effect doing that. You'll notice the output's quite shaky. It depends on what you're trying to achieve, whether this is a good thing or not. For what I want, this is great. For what you want, maybe not. You can fix it up digitally, but it's much better to do it at the source. One of the ways of doing this is putting structure in your wire. The more triangles you have, the stronger the wire's going to be and the less it's going to bounce around. However, where's your bounce coming from? It's probably from uneven ground that you're driving on, and so you're still going to get that no matter what. You can try making suspension, but sooner or later you're going to hit the resonant frequency of it somewhere. Another way to do it is to follow it with a model car or a trolley. In the movie industry they typically use tracks which they lay down temporarily, although that's getting well beyond our on a budget scope. One problem I did have to overcome was the metal wire touching the antenna of the car. It just caused it to go out of reception, which meant I couldn't do anything with it. So the solution to this was just to stick some insulation on the wire and we're done. Now I'm going to quickly rattle off some other things that I've used in the past. They are useful, but they're not quite as interesting, so I'm not going to dwell on them very long. This one's pretty simple. It's just hanging the camera on the string and letting it slide down that string freely. Now I used a straw to do this, which worked fairly well, but it could have been improved a fair bit. Another way of doing it is using pulleys. I suspect you'll have a lot better joy with that. I didn't use the scene in the end, so I didn't develop the idea further. Attaching the camera to the front of the car was awesome. It was just a matter of taping the camera to the front bumper and just leaving it be. You've got to be really careful that the camera is well attached though, but other than that it was really easy. Look how well this footage speeds up. The boom. Now this is something that is used a lot in the movies. I made mine using a fiberglass stick, some wire and a piece of wood. It worked really well actually. I did try string originally, and when I had a really steady hand it worked well, but most of the time it didn't. So using the wire really did help because I was able to give it quite a firm feel. Another thing that's really cool is how you hook up the wire or string. If you put it straight, then the camera is going to move in fairly much the same way as you move the boom. However, if you cross them over, then the camera will actually do the opposite thing to the way you move the boom. And you can actually do some really cool stuff with this. I managed to get some really interesting angles, which I'm going to play to you now. And attaching a camera to the helmet. This is how I film the models when I don't have anyone to hold the camera for me. The main problem I have with this is that when I'm close, I need it to be looking down, and when it's far away, I need it to be looking up. So putting it somewhere in the middle often works best. But you'll see here, I've got beautiful pictures of sky and the model's somewhere down below. So it really does help if you have someone there to help calibrate it with you. Especially if they can go and stand far away and then you can get the camera at the right angle. Maybe even a third person would help even further, but whatever you have available. Attaching a camera to the bottom of a plane has very similar things that we need to think about to the helicopter. We need to be worried about the centre of gravity. We need to be worried about the weight. We also need to have a look at what's going to be in view where we attach the camera. Very frequently the landing gear or the propeller get in the way. So with this particular plane, I've actually modified it so that it no longer has a front propeller, it no longer has landing gear. So now neither are a problem. Now, it's quite important to note that I actually have to stick the camera quite a way out. Now this is because I've removed so much stuff that now the nose is very heavy and I actually have to put more weight there. So I'm actually using the camera to do that. But be aware that by doing this, the camera's going to be the first thing to hit if I crash. And it has. Anyway, part of the way I've mounted this actually helps combat the effect of this. And what that is, I've simply just got some wire there, and that wire absorbs a lot of the impact. If you have a camera, like most cameras which have the lens which moves in and out, that is going to be really, really vulnerable to how this plane will crash. The camera I've chosen specifically because it has no moving parts. It also happens to be cheap, which is very nice, and those two things often go together. Finding the centre of gravity on a plane is a little more tricky than on a helicopter because it's not necessarily the same for every aircraft. The general rule of thumb that I've heard is about 1/3 back from the front of the wing. On my one that was far too far forward and I actually had to move it back by several inches. Today I've shown you how to mount a camera on a model helicopter, a model plane, a model car, a real car, a string, a helmet, a boom, and that's about it. I'd really recommend checking out funnyhacks.blogspot.com. There's lots of extra material and there's even a new behind the hacks section as well. Anyway, it's time for the grand finale. I hope you enjoy it. I'm Kevin Sandham, this is Funny Hacks.
Jody was your average solo man.
Shut up!
Until now.
You work for us now. You no longer have any fingerprints, identity, or family.
Kids?
Jody, it's okay, we took care of them. No, Jody, they're in daycare.
Oh, okay.
This is your new car.
Kick ass! Now I can get the kids to school and back faster than you can say. Kick ass!
Now Jody must see life from a new perspective, so she can face her arch enemy. Dr. Fuzz.
Kick ass!
Action.
Kick ass!
Drama.
I need to pee-pee. I told you to go before we left.
Mystery.
What was that?
And romance.
Why, hello, handsome.
Are you talking to me?
Kick ass!
See it at funnyhacks.blogspot.com.
Kick ass!
Yeah.
Kick ass!
Don't say that, that's not nice.